He's a WWE producer slash WWE veteran.
You're a 3-time WWE Tag Team Champion.
He's a former WWE Cruiserweight Champion. She's a broadcast personality, former member of the Nexus. He's a 4-time Emmy-winning TV host.
Canadian Wrestling Hall of Famer. She's an ACW Women's Champion, and she is the daughter of the late, great British Bulldog. Winner of WWE's Cruiserweight Classic.
TJ Black from Ring of Honor, TJP, aka TJ Perkins, Georgia Smith, Darren Young, Arnold, Ariel Blake,
Chris Van Vliet,
Wrestling Classic, aka Justin Dillon.
Please welcome Tyson Kidd, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the DropKick Podcast. Today I have a very special guest, someone who I've been waiting to have on the show for quite a while, one of my good friends, Joey Karni, over at the Angle Podcast. So everybody, please give him a warm welcome. What's going on, Joey? How are you doing?
How you doing, man? Glad to be on the show. Been waiting to be on the show, man. I've seen a lot of your guests and a lot of your episodes, and I'm pumped to be here.
Oh, absolutely, man. Thank you. That means a lot, man. And we've been waiting to have you on, and it's finally happening. So for the people who don't know who Joey Karni is, he hosts the Angle Podcast, a fantastic podcast that consists of interviews, pre-shows for pro wrestling pay-per-views, and a lot more. Where can everybody find you?
So you can find me on all streaming platforms, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. I'm on YouTube. Everything is at the Angle Podcast, Twitter, all the social media platforms at the Angle Podcast. And on Twitter is probably my top spot to be, so follow me there.
Absolutely. Everybody go check it out. He produces some really, really good content. He puts a lot of work into it. My favorite stuff of his is his pay-per-view pre-shows, which I have been a part of alongside Danial on multiple occasions. So, I'm curious to know, out of all the pre-shows you've done, which one would you say you're most proud of? Because I know you put a lot of hard work and effort into them.
That is true, and I do appreciate you saying that, and it means a lot to hear that coming from other podcasters who talk about the same stuff. So that means a lot. My favorite show that I've done was probably my SummerSlam show, which you guys were a part of. That was probably my biggest show just because it was my 1-year anniversary of doing the podcast, but it was also my favorite pay-per-view of the year. So I get really pumped for SummerSlam every year. And I had some short cameos on it. We had Devon Dudley talk about TLC matches that he had with Edge and Christian and the Hardys years ago. Kurt Angle spoke a little bit. So it's always cool to, go back to that pay-per-view for me. So SummerSlam was probably my favorite one so far.
SummerSlam, yeah, absolutely. An exciting pay-per-view every single year. I love SummerSlam.
First one in the Thunderdome.
Oh, yeah, first one in the Thunderdome. Honestly, I was probably more excited for SummerSlam this year than WrestleMania. Just because of the whole Thunderdome, yeah. So, obviously, we're podcasters in the professional wrestling business. A lot of us have goals to grow our own brands or to do something else. For me personally, I'm a professional wrestler in training, right? So my end goal is to be a successful professional wrestler. What would you say your end goal is in the professional wrestling business? Would it be growing your own brand or being signed to a major company like AEW or WWE?
When I first started this whole thing that I'm doing, because I don't really have a specific name for what I'm doing. I started it out as I was writing for my own brand. I had a YouTube, Joey Karni this, Joey Karni that. I was branding myself. And I kind of got complacent with the content I was putting out. I was just putting out content that I wanted to see, not necessarily what I thought others wanted to see. It was more of an ego thing, I think, now that I look back on it. And I kind of got stuck, and I was like, all right, do I continue making content, which is my favorite thing to do in the world and I'm most passionate about? And how do I connect that to other passions of mine? And the first thing that always comes to mind, either when people talk to me or myself, was pro wrestling. So I figured, all right, I went to school for marketing and journalism. I can write. I can kind of market stuff in a way where people want to come after it. So I had that down. Learning how to edit and shoot videos and, all the content you talked about before, putting all the work in, that was for me taking the time by myself to learn through YouTube videos and things like that. So to where I am now with the I originally never wanted to do interviews. I didn't even think about it. I wanted to just talk about pro wrestling, do pro wrestling pre-shows like we talked about. And then someone said, hey, you should interview wrestlers. And that opportunity came about, and I started doing that. So the direction keeps changing. But the ultimate goal, I think now, is to be a well-known figure in the business, but on TV as well. Whether that be in WWE, creating content on screen, or AEW or Impact, wherever. And I think that's kind of where I'm headed now.
Yeah, man, and it's crazy, like how your show changed, and like how you said originally you just wanted to speak about pro wrestling, because it's also crazy because I always want to be a pro wrestler. And like I always had on my YouTube channel where like if you guys go back on this YouTube channel, it's not only the DropKick Podcast, it's a lot of my own stuff too. And I would just talk about wrestling all the time. And then it was Daniel who approached me and he said, "Hey, we should interview wrestlers," because we were somewhat friends at that point. We're DMing and talking, and I'm like, "All right, you know what? Why not?" Quarantine just started, and then the DropKick Podcast just started. We started rolling with the guests, and it's crazy how things can definitely steamroll and blow up. So I definitely relate to you there. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, I got one comment on that too. A big thing that I've found with the podcasters in general, but specifically more the wrestling podcasts like ourselves, a lot of people, I always get DMs. How do I get the guests that I have? Whether they be independent people that nobody knows, or whether they be people like Rob Van Dam, who you guys have spoken to too, or like Shane Helms, for example. How do I get those people? And it's literally by asking. That's the bottom line, is asking, whether it's through a DM or I've spoken to Daniel about before, sending DMs on Instagram. Wherever you can get in touch with them, do it. I mean, shoot your shot 2020. You know what I mean? Like, might as well try it.
Yeah, absolutely. The worst thing that'll happen is they won't see your message or they'll say no. It's literally, that's it. That's the only thing that can happen. That's kind of what we went, because me and Daniel have always had this mindset going into trying to get guests, is that when we first started, we'd get like bummed out if someone would say no, or if someone would just leave us unseen. And then I just started telling myself, okay, they didn't say yes in the first place, so we really lost nothing. And I feel like that's what a lot of people got to live by, because I feel like that helps. That's a really good mindset to have, that you didn't lose anything. And it's true.
I commend you guys for it, because a lot of podcasters are not even, they're too afraid, or they're just not willing to take that leap because they're scared of the rejection. You guys just went out and did it. And you guys' show is not even that old. So to have the guests you have, I commend you guys, to be where you are now.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that. But like, as we spoke about, like, mindsets, trying to have that positive mindset while I'm starting the show, something that we really like to talk about on our podcast is mental health. So if you're comfortable sharing, of course, have you ever struggled with your mental health, and what advice would you give to people who are watching who could be struggling?
Of course. I am very open with my mental health struggles. I actually talked about it a lot on my personal brand, where I have suffered, or I still suffer from anxiety. It's a thing that I deal with every day, and it does affect your daily routines. It does affect everything that you do in life in general. So like I said, I've been very open with that. I speak about it all the time, because I think if I can say something, or if I can open myself up like that, or other people can hear it or read it and say, you know what, there's someone else who goes through that, kind of feel relatable. And it also can help to help. I mean, just in general, help. You may not have the option to have someone who can give you advice around you in your friend group or your family. They may not know anything about. For me, for example, anxiety. I didn't have people around to say, oh, this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do. Kind of have to learn what works for you. And so if there's people out there that can, open themselves up and share, and that could possibly help, I mean, that's the best thing to do.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, that means a lot. And we've always liked to talk about that aspect, because it's something that me and Daniel have both struggled with before. We feel like a lot of people struggled with it. And we always thought, since we are both into professional wrestling, it's like, it would, like, with our interviews, we always ask the wrestlers if they struggle with their mental health, because we feel as though so many people view professional wrestlers as larger than life. So when they see their own heroes and their idols coming out about this stuff, it helps them accept the fact that, like, it's okay to not be okay at times, and it's perfectly normal to struggle. Yeah, absolutely. So I thank you a lot for coming on here and speaking about that, because I know it takes a lot for someone to open up about that stuff, for sure. So
it took me a while to actually be able to like express that to people, where a lot of, before mental health was really a topic, I think people were very insensitive to people who had mental health struggles, where it was, you're being too sensitive, you're being, grow up or whatever. And people didn't really understand that there is such thing as mental health, first off, the topic. And there's so many different directions that goes. Just that, the words mental health, like, it goes in 100 different directions, where everyone can possibly suffer from something that you may not know. So I think
absolutely, man. Definitely. Yeah, raising awareness for it is very important. But moving on now, we got a big pay-per-view coming up this Sunday. WWE's presenting one of the big four in Survivor Series, Raw versus Smackdown this year. What do you think about the card going into Sunday?
The card is very interesting. I've been watching WWE the last few weeks very closely, because I'm trying to really get a grasp of what we're going to expect at Survivor Series. I have a lot of negative comments. I have a lot of positive comments. Positive comments, I really do enjoy the champions that we have across the board right now. I think both tag team champions are champions that I love to watch in matches. The Intercontinental Champion, Sami Zayn, I love watching him. Bobby Lashley has grown on me a lot since that whole debacle with Lana back then. He's grown on me. The Hurt Business is one of my favorite parts of Monday Night Raw. We have the Universal Champion, which, without question, we know is the top topic in WWE today, Roman Reigns. And then you have the newly won champion, and Drew McIntyre last night. And I kind of made a comment about it on Twitter that, and I don't know if you ever thought about this, but the WWE title has changed hands like a week or so before Survivor Series since like 2016. Every year, when it was Jinder Mahal holding the title and then AJ won the title, or if it was AJ holding the title and Daniel Bryan got it, and if it was Kofi who had it, Brock Lesnar got it, and now it's, if Randy Orton had it, Drew McIntyre got it. So I think they really plan these main events, and then right before, they're like, oh, I don't really like this idea, which is why we're getting Roman versus Drew, which I think is a great match. It's probably the match I'm looking forward to most, because that was a match we saw at WrestleMania a few years back, where it was on the lower end of the card. Before, that was them fighting to get to where they are now, fighting for that top spot, and now we see. So that's gonna be a really interesting match to see.
Interesting match, and I'll have a lot to comment on that match once we get to it. I think it's crazy. I think it's probably the most unpredictable one on the card, and Drew McIntyre winning the WWE title. I somewhat expected it, because, as you said, it's been changing hands before Survivor Series for the last few years. But part of me is like, I thought Orton was going to defend it against Edge, but also something we got to keep our eyes on is there's a 16 World Championship record that John Cena and Ric Flair hold that Orton's getting kind of close to. I could definitely see him winning a few more world titles and catching up there. But I wouldn't mind it either, man. To be honest, I'd have no problem with it. So, one thing that I feel like something about the shows that's getting so overlooked is the Undertaker's final farewell. So, celebrations of 30 years of the Undertaker. Do you think something's going to happen here, or do you think this is just going to be some highlights of Taker?
This kind of had me, like, I was questioning this for a few weeks now, because they're hyping it up as if he's going to be, like, in the ring, like a farewell, like all these guys are going to come down and they're going to hug it out. And it's going to be like what we saw with Ric Flair back in the day when he retired. But then I'm thinking to myself, well, SmackDown has a 5th spot open. Will the Undertaker be the 5th member of Team SmackDown and close out his career with a win for SmackDown at Survivor Series, the event he started at? So there's a lot of different directions they can go. I don't know if he's going to be wrestling. I don't know if it's going to be like a in-ring thing, but I can't see it being not physical. It's the Undertaker.
Yeah.
I can't see him not throwing a choke slam or a tombstone out there, or just, I can't see him just walking away. So something is obviously going to happen, and I don't know if that's setting up for something later or if it closes out, like I said, like in the 5-on-5 match.
Yeah, that's a great point you brought up. I honestly, like, they've got the open slot on SmackDown. I didn't see Undertaker I didn't even consider that. That could definitely be something that happens. Undertaker joining Team SmackDown. I don't know. I feel like it could also just be a little bit of a speech. Someone comes out, tries to interrupt, tombstone, leaves. Who knows what we're going to get there? It seems pretty exciting. But as you spoke earlier about the Intercontinental Champion, who's been very entertaining lately, Sami Zayn is representing SmackDown, taking on Bobby Lashley, the United States Champion, representing Raw. Who do you have taking this match?
Yeah, so I think that for this match, I think we're going to see Bobby Lashley get a win. We've seen Sami Zayn over the last few weeks steal some wins, but I think he's going to get put in that hurt lock, and Bobby Lashley is going to choke him out. Just because we have seen Bobby Lashley grow in the sense where he's been dominating, no pun intended, but also elevating that title, where I think it's about time we see the U.S. title take a little head start over the Intercontinental Championship.
I absolutely agree. I see Sami Zayn getting choked out here with the Hurt Lock. Ever since the Hurt Business started, Bobby Lashley has just been on a roll. So is Sami Zayn. But the thing about Sami Zayn's gimmick right now is that he cheats to win a lot. He's kind of playing the chicken shit heel. So he can take the loss here and be perfectly fine. And it's just the most realistic scenarios for Bobby Lashley to make Sami Zayn tap or even pass out. So we'll go with Bobby Lashley here with both of us. Take the win. Next, representing Raw is the Raw Tag Team Champions, the New Day, taking on the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, the Street Profits. This one's a little bit tough. Who do you see winning?
This one is a little bit tough, and from what we've seen, I'm going to take it from a logical standpoint. We've seen the New Day in matches over the last few weeks, in really great matches, like Monday Night Raw, putting their titles on the line, defeating the Hurt Business. Street Profits, I haven't really seen them perform. I mean, they were in that match with Daniel Bryan and Kevin Owens, 2-3 weeks ago, but I haven't really seen them in other than backstage cameos. So I kind of have to put my money on the New Day. I just think they're more prepared for this match. But I wouldn't be surprised with a Street Profits win.
Yeah.
I'm putting my money on the New Day.
So you're putting your money on the New Day. I'm going to go against you here. I'm going to go with the Street Profits. I think the Street Profits have been, they were the Raw Tag Team Champions. God, I love WWE, but that title exchange thing was kind of dumb. But yeah.
It was the laziest way.
Yeah, like I really try to be positive about wrestling, but that just didn't make much sense to me.
I thought we'd at least put the titles together and have undisputed tag team champions, which I was hoping for a while, but
even that would have worked.
Just straight off titles.
I'll just say the Street Profits have been one of WWE's tag team champions for a very long time now, and I think they're really behind the Street Profits. I think with Big E splitting, and I think with the New Day kind of being on Raw, I don't think I even see their tag team title reign going that long after Survivor Series. I think we're having Street Profits versus New Day. I think the Street Profits will win. I think the New Day will then drop the titles to the Hurt Business. Even though they've just lost their title match recently, I could still see it happening. So I'm going with Street Profits. You're going with the New Day.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good for that match. Next up is representing Raw is the Raw Women's Champion, Asuka, taking on the SmackDown Women's Champion, Sasha Banks. Who do you have for this match?
I think the hype right now is behind Sasha Banks. I mean, after an amazing feud with Bayley, Hell in a Cell, retaining her title for the first time, appearing in The Mandalorian, which was big. I definitely think in this one, though, Asuka, she's not ready for Asuka. We've seen it before in the summer. Even at, I think it was SummerSlam too. She faced her and she beat her. But I definitely think Asuka is gonna pull out a win here. It's not gonna be an easy win, but Asuka's gonna get a win.
Absolutely. See, when you say that, I could definitely see Bayley costing Sasha the match. But with all the hype behind Sasha Banks, I'm going to go with Sasha Banks. I think Sasha Banks going to get that win over Asuka, avenging her loss at SummerSlam. I feel like this is going to finally be that Sasha Banks title reign where it doesn't end within a month. I think
hope so.
Yeah, I hope so too.
This long, might as well make it worth it.
Yeah, she's amazing, and I think she deserves to have this reign be lengthy. So I like the vibe we got going here. I think we've both picked SmackDown. No. I've picked SmackDown twice, and you've picked Raw 3 times.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that until just now.
I wasn't even thinking about keeping a scoreboard. All right, so we both picked Bobby Lashley for Raw.
Yeah.
So for you got Raw at 3-0 right now. I got 1 Raw, 2 SmackDown.
Got it.
We'll see if we can try to keep up with that. So next up, some more women's wrestling. We have the Women's Survivor Series match. Representing Monday Night Raw is Nia Jax, Shayna Baszler, Lacey Evans, Peyton Royce, and Lana. And they're going to take on SmackDown's team consisting of Bianca Belair, Ruby Riott, Liv Morgan, and 2 more people to be determined. Depending on when this comes out, you guys may already know, but as of right now, there's 2 open slots.
This one, you're going to hate me. And a lot of people are going to hate me for this one, too. I definitely think, well, there's 2 ways to go here. I think Lana is going to be the sole survivor for Monday Night Raw.
I could see it happening.
I feel like that's what they're going to do. Just with the storyline we've seen her with, I think that what's going to happen is that she's going to be put through a table early on by Nia. She's going to be out of the match, and then she's going to make her way back. Sorry, I have dogs in the background.
Oh, no problem.
She's going to make her way back into the match where she's going to be the sole survivor. Is she going to win? That's a lot to say. But I think on this one, I'm going to have to go with SmackDown. SmackDown getting the win in this match. But I think Lana is going to really prove herself to her team, but also to everyone watching, being the sole survivor. She's definitely walking out the last member of her team.
I agree. I think Lana's going to come out the last member of her team. Yeah. I wouldn't put it past WWE to have her actually win it for her team, but I'm going to agree with you here, and I'm going to predict Team SmackDown. As simple as I can just envision Bianca Belair being the sole survivor already. I think they're very behind her.
It's going to be a big moment for her.
Yeah, so I could definitely see Bianca Belair being SmackDown sole survivor and winning the Women's Survivor Series annual 5-on-5 match. So we're both going with SmackDown here with Lana as a sole survivor. So for me, that's 3 SmackDown, 1 Raw. For you, that's 3 Raw, 1 SmackDown.
Yeah.
We got going right now. It's crazy, man. I remember a few years ago, it was Raw clean sweep SmackDown.
Clean sweep. I think it was like 6-0.
Yeah, that was crazy.
17 or 18, I think it was. Clean sweep.
Yeah. Man. Yeah, that was wild. But next up is the Men's Survivor Series 5-on-5 elimination. Representing Raw is AJ Styles, possibly the team captain. To me, he is.
He is the team captain.
He is. It's obvious, man.
Night Raw, he held that team together for as long as he could. Out of everyone there, he is the team captain.
Definitely. So our team captain, AJ Styles, Keith Lee, Sheamus, Braun Strowman, and I refuse to just call him Riddle, Matt Riddle, taking on Team SmackDown, Kevin Owens, Jey Uso, King Corbin, Seth Rollins, and someone to be determined.
So I think Raw has a stacked team, size-wise. They have a team that they're really trying to make a statement with. You have Matt Riddle, should I say, and Keith Lee, who are the future of that brand. You have guys like Sheamus, who is a veteran. You have guys like Braun Strowman, former world champion. And he's the muscle of the group. You have AJ, who, let's be honest, he's one of the greatest of all time.
Oh, absolutely. No doubt.
They have a great dynamic. They have a stacked team. But Friday Night SmackDown it's an all-star team. Everyone on that team, I could say, is a future world champion or is already a former world champion. I think not having the fifth member announced is their only downfall right now, because going into this pay-per-view, we don't know who the fifth member is. That's why I keep saying I think it's going to be Undertaker, because there's not even advertised matches for SmackDown that say these are the last people to compete to be a competitor in that match. So I think it's going to be a surprise, to be honest with you, the fifth member. A lot of people are saying Daniel Bryan will be the fifth member. But either way, I think SmackDown is winning this match. And here's why. Well, this is what I thought before Monday Night Raw. Before Monday Night Raw, we had Randy Orton as the WWE champion. And I said to myself, why is Drew McIntyre not on the Raw team? It's like ridiculous that he's not. He should be.
That's what I was thinking too.
If he's not WWE champion. Even the roles reversed, Randy Orton not being champion, he should have been on that team if he's not the WWE champion. So they should have had the roles reversed where Raw had the one spot open. And that would have kept Braun Strowman off the team, to be honest. But if Drew McIntyre was not going to be on Raw, because if he was going to be on Team Raw, he'd have to be the sole survivor and win the whole thing.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So the fact that they didn't have him there made me think that, all right, they don't want him to be on Team Raw because he'll win the whole thing, which means SmackDown's going to win, obviously. But now that he's the WWE champion, I still have to say I think SmackDown's going to take the win. Just different dynamic on the team. Raw has a great dynamic. Each person holds their weight, but they're falling apart right now. SmackDown, all-star team. We know all-star teams at Survivor Series do well. So I'm going to have to go with Team SmackDown on this one.
I'm going to have to agree with you here. I think Team SmackDown is taking this victory. As for the to be determined spot, we both said there's a slight chance it could be Undertaker, but like if I'm really giving my honest prediction here, I'd probably think it's either Daniel Bryan or Dominic Mysterio.
It could also be Big E.
That's also.
I tweeted out, I think on SmackDown this past week, I said Big E needs to be on Team SmackDown. Big E needs to be the sole survivor and win that match for SmackDown. Big E needs to get his push that he was broken away from the New Day for. It starts at Survivor Series. We saw it happen last year with Keith Lee. He was the MVP of Survivor Series. Obviously losing that match to Roman. But I think having Big E in this match, he would be the MVP, winning it for SmackDown, and then going on to maybe face Corbin or somebody, and then go into the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, absolutely. I could definitely see that happening. See, to me, the wild card in this is honestly, it's Jey Uso, because I see Jey Uso being the sole survivor, to be honest. Because just the babyface underdog work he was doing with Roman was phenomenal to me. Yeah. And I honestly, right now, I'm a big Edge head. I'd love to see Orton and Edge, but now it looks like that won't be a title match. So that probably puts Edge away from winning the Rumble. And I think I would be fine with Jey Uso kind of pulling his 2016 Randy Orton, pretending to be in the Wyatt family, wins the Rumble, takes on Bray for the title, pretends to be aligned with Roman, wins the Rumble, takes the title from Roman. I feel like you could make a good star in Jey Uso here. And I'd love to have him as a sole survivor. Maybe Jey becomes a sole survivor and for some reason Roman gets mad. Maybe he outshines Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre, and this 5-on-5 match is all that everybody's talking about. And he's like, why are people talking about you? They should be talking about me. So, yeah, I'm going to Team SmackDown here. And I think Jey Uso will be the sole survivor.
They are calling him Main Event Jey. He's bringing in ratings.
Oh, he is.
Which they did not know before. They didn't think so before. And Listen, I'm invested in this Roman Reigns head of the whatever the hell they're calling it, tribal chief thing that they're doing. I'm a fan of it. Jey Uso is, I think, outshining everyone's expectations.
Me too.
You know what? I knew it earlier on this year when he was in that battle royal where the winner was gonna face for the Intercontinental Championship. Do you remember that? It was like it was him, Shorty Gable, like a bunch of different guys, and I think who won that match? I think Sheamus won that match.
Yeah, it was either Sheamus or Baron Corbin. I can't put my finger on it. Yeah.
Where the winner got to face for the Intercontinental Championship. Actually, was it Jey who won? I don't know. No, I don't think it was. But in that match, I was like, this guy. First of all, they're finally utilizing him now that he's a singles competitor, so to say, because his brother's out. But he proved to me that he can do it. And I said,
he's good, man.
Time before he's in a singles run with a title because he can do it. And we're seeing it play out now.
It sounds so wild because he's a tag team specialist, but I want to see him win the world title. Because honestly, all right, I'm going to be honest. I'm 17 now, and I was a lot younger. Well, not a lot younger, but in my mid years as a teenager, I hated Roman Reigns, like babyface Roman. Now I got no problem with him. I think this heel work is amazing, but I would be lying to you if I said I tune into SmackDown for Roman, because I honestly tune into SmackDown for Jey Uso. I find myself more invested in seeing what he's doing rather than Roman Reigns, and I feel like that's the perfect way to have these guys feud.
Well, here's the thing. What you just said is exactly what they want, because Roman is taking more of the direction of Brock Lesnar, where we know Roman before was flying over the top rope, having great matches. I mean, if you look back to his matches for the WWE title with AJ Styles, for example.
Oh, classic
matches. This guy can put on great matches.
Absolutely.
They're not doing that anymore. They're more brutal beatdowns, Brock Lesnar sort of style matches. So they need someone to fill that void for Roman. Bring in Jey Uso. Jey Uso is putting on those phenomenal matches. I mean, not everyone can have a great match, period. But to have a classic match with Kevin Owens, classic match with Daniel Bryan, classic match with literally anybody as a singles competitor and a tag team competitor is very, very rare. And the Usos can do it. I mean, at least for Jey.
Oh, absolutely, man. I completely agree. So we're both going with SmackDown here. I've lost track of. All right, so we'll go with you first. You got 1 Raw, 2 Raw, 3 Raw.
I was 3 Raw. Now I'm 2 SmackDown.
3 Raw, 2 SmackDown. Yeah, and I'm. Yeah. I'm the opposite. So I'm 1 SmackDown, 2 SmackDown, 3 SmackDown, 4. I'm 4 SmackDown and 1 Raw. Okay. All right, perfect. So now, finally, the main event, champion versus champion. I always look forward to the champion versus champion matches at Survivor Series. I loved the NXT thing last year. I really did. But the one thing that lacked for me was just that world champion versus world champion match, because Brock Lesnar tore it up with AJ Styles. He tore it up with Daniel Bryan. Now, this one is going to be good and very unpredictable. We got Drew McIntyre versus Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is wrestling that slow-paced Brock Lesnar style. Drew McIntyre is just a powerhouse. This is a powerhouse versus powerhouse. Both guys have been on a roll. Tough to predict. Who do you got?
I got Roman, and here's why. Drew is on a warpath right now. Just reclaimed the WWE title Monday Night Raw. He's got a lot of momentum. Roman Reigns is kind of sitting in the back waiting for something. He hasn't been in the ring. Jey Uso's been doing his dirty work. He's waiting. He's healthy. He's 100%. We saw that match with Randy Orton. It was a no DQ. He got beat up pretty bad. But I think the underlining factor here is Randy Orton. He's not featured on the card. Newly lost his WWE title. I think he's going to cost Drew McIntyre the match to continue the feud, because there's no one really feuding right now with Roman. So there's really no one to cost Roman. You're not going to have Kevin Owens or Daniel Bryan cost Roman. You're going to have Randy Orton cost Drew McIntyre, continue their feud, and Roman gets the win for SmackDown.
Yeah, see, that's exactly what I was saying. I agree with you. I think Roman Reigns is taking this. I don't think anybody's getting a clean win here. If Drew McIntyre wins, it's going to be some sort of interference. Maybe Jey Uso tries to help Roman Reigns or something, cost him the match. Or if Reigns wins, who I also predict, either Randy Orton attacks Drew McIntyre or the lights flicker for the Fiend. Something like that will happen. And we're both predicting Roman Reigns here. So, yeah, so I believe that's both of us predicting a SmackDown victory, correct?
I think so. I'm going with SmackDown. There's no other way. When was the last time that we saw Roman with a clean win?
Yeah, it's been a while, man.
Before he came back, which has it's been over a year.
It's been almost over a year, man. We both have SmackDown winning this, and I think SmackDown needs this because NXT won Survivor Series last year. I believe the year before that was when they got cleanly swept. So like,
could be. I'm not sure.
Yeah, 2018 I believe because that was with Daniel Bryan as the world champion, and then 2017 Raw also won. I don't think SmackDown's won Survivor Series in like 4 years, so I think it's a much needed victory.
Because they've had great competitors to represent them since 2016.
Absolutely, man. Definitely. So I thank you so much for joining us here. Once again, before I leave you, where can everybody find the Angle Podcast?
Absolutely. I'm on all streaming platforms, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. I think Stitcher now I'm on there. You can go to theangleradio.com. Everything is there, all interviews and podcast episodes. All social media is at The Angle Radio. And like I said, Twitter is my number one spot where I'm the most active. So you can go follow me there.
Absolutely. Everybody go check him out. Check out his pay-per-view pre-shows. Check out his interviews. Check out all the episodes of the Angle Podcast. I thank you so much for coming on here. I greatly appreciate it. And hopefully Survivor Series is a blast this weekend.
Awesome, man. I appreciate coming on. And I haven't done a pre-show in a while. So I'm going to break news here. I'm going to be coming back in 2021. And I want you guys to be on there. So it's going to be the first one back, I think, since the summer. So
absolutely. Everybody, that's right. So tune in. Royal Rumble pre-show?
Most likely Royal Rumble pre-show.
That'll be a fun one, man. I'd gladly be a part of it, man. So thank you so much for being on, and thank you a lot.